Nowadays, plastic pollution has become a severe problem. And the underlying problem of this fact is the difficulty to break down plastic efficiently. Let's see how long it takes to decompose plastics. For instance, it takes 10 to 20 years to dissolve just a plastic bag. As for plastic caps and lids, it takes 450 to 1,000 years to break down. It spends 450 years for plastic utensils and 400 years for plastic bottles. In contrast, it only takes 1 to 5 years to break down cigarettes and 50 years to dissolve tin cans. Since plastic are very hard to be broken down, most of them are still existing in this world in various kinds of forms. Studies have shown that 8.3 billion metric pounds of plastic has been produced since plastic was introduced in 1950s. The amount of plastic produced in a year is roughly the same as the entire weight of humanity. Up to 12.7 million tons of plastic enters the ocean every year. The equivalent of a truckload of plastics enters the ocean every minute. In fact, there are a lot of countries around the world suffering from plastic pollution. Ghana.
According to the United Nations Environmental Program, 85% of the e-waste was dumped to Ghana. To end the export of used electronics from the developed world, it ended up depending on the African who also devoted to e-waste to make a living. In the course of the day, they burned up a few hundred pounds of wires so that after the plastic are broken down, they can gather up the steel that is left behind and sell them for money. However, what they didn't acknowledge is the fact that the plastic that is burned have caused severe air and soil pollution.
Midway Atoll.
Midway Atoll is the furthest piece of land from civilization. But unfortunately, an enormous amount of plastic garbage, mostly from China and the United States, were washed onto the island with the tide. With all the plastic fragments appearing on the surface, lots of birds mistook them for food, then fed them to their offsprings. Nevertheless, since birds can digest the plastic pieces, it leads them to death. Even though there are no accurate statistics about the number of dead birds due to the reason that there are no people living on the island, we can still understand how serious the problem is by taking the statistics from the northwestern Hawaiian Islands as a reference. It indicates that more than 89% of the dead birds contain plastic in their stomach.
The Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is the largest of the 5 offshore plastic accumulation zones in the world oceans, which is located between Hawaii and California. The mass of the waste spans about 600,000 square miles, about 3 times the size of France. The researchers found that 92% of the mass was larger objects, while only 8% of them are microplastics. Ocean plastics waste would attract and kill marine life. Though people have put a lot of effort into solving the problem, it still takes a lot of time for it to be really solved.
United States.
The States have been one of the biggest plastic waste source. Here are the 2 facts to support this point of view. Currently, 100 billions of plastic bags are used by Americans every year. When the plastic bags are tied together, they would circle around the Earth equator about 773 times. Moreover, Americans use 500 million plastic straws every day, which is enough to circle the Earth twice.
Europe.
There are more microplastics in the ocean than the numbers of stars in the Milky Way. Studies according to Plymouth University shows every 3 fish that were caught locally, there will be 1 of them contains microplastic in their stomach. Another estimated that Europeans who eat shellfish could be exposed to 11,000 pieces of microplastics each year.
Spain.
The plastic sea of greenhouse in Almeria, Spain has been producing fruits and vegetables that supply the domestic and European markets. However, behind the significant amount of agriculture products, there is an underlying threat of desertification and degrading soil. The reason why they hasten the process of desertification is that the greenhouse is confined by the plastic bags without any gaps between them to that the air circulates.
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica recently produces 400 tons of plastic garbages every day, and 20% of it ends up in the nature. To dope out the issue, the government of Costa Rica has started to take action. They set a national goal to eliminate all the use of disposable or single-use plastic items by 2021, hoping to become the first country to ban plastic. So what their plan exactly is that they have implemented a strategy effort to encourage locals and institutions to cut the use of plastic to none. On the other hand, their plan also encouraged for researchers to put effort in finding sustainable alternatives to plastics. Costa Rican college students have discovered a replacement made of banana that looks 5 times stronger than plastic used to be, and it takes only 18 months to let it biodegrade.
Nigeria.
Nigeria's first plastic house was built in the village of Ilwa. Now the discarded plastic bottles has been widely used to build hotels, restaurants, homes, and even foreign embassies. The plastic house is bulletproof, 20 times stronger than bricks, and it costs 1/3 of an ordinary home. It also gives children who was left on the street by their parents an opportunity to work instead of begging.
After doing a lot of research and discussing this project with some teachers, we decided to build the greenhouse with plastic bottles. To build this, we will need approximately 2,000 plastic bottles. However, instead of buying new ones, we chose to collect the bottles that are used before in order to make this more environmental friendly. We have gone to several night markets and recycling centers to find some bottles that are still in good shape. Even though the recycling rate in Taiwan is already higher than most of the countries, we still find a lot of bottles mixed with the trash. After a week, we finally collected enough plastic bottles. But before started building the greenhouse, we still have to classify the bottles in different shape, take off the labels, and wash them one by one to make sure we would have bottles in good condition.
First of all, we cut down the bottoms of 2,000 plastic bottles so that the streams can pass through it. Here comes the very essential part of this project, which is building the outframe of our greenhouse. The frame is made of the wood, which is 100 cm wide and 125 cm long and 2 meters high. It takes quite a long time for us to build it up. And since we are still beginners in hammering the nails into the wood, the hammer even went straight into our fingers and hurt our nails during the constructing process.
When the frames are done, we string up the plastic bottles together with a nylon rope. Each ropes have approximately 18 bottles, and we tried our best to let all the bottles that are on the same ropes to be roughly the same size and also to have the same ring colors. We tied one end of the rope around the frame, and the other end through the hole we drilled on the top of the frame. It may seem quite easy to tie the ropes. However, we find it very complicated since the bottles should be tightly assembled to one another. After 3 working days, the preceding procedure was finally accomplished. So big thanks to our instructor, because with her support and help, we finally have our greenhouse built in time in order to have sufficient time for our seeds to grow.
According to the research we found on the internet, The temperature gap inside and outside the greenhouse can reach to 10 degrees Celsius. To see whether this greenhouse really works, we bought 4 flower pots and some soil. On December 15th, we planted down the seeds and put 2 pots inside the greenhouse and the other 2 outside the greenhouse. There are 8 seeds planted in each pot. Every day, we went to check the temperature and the moisture of the soil. And now, let's see our finished greenhouse and also our planting diary.